Although ears differ widely in variety, there are some general shapes that can be considered as a starting point. These shapes are very general and can be applied in most circumstances with very little changes, but can also work as a place to start and modify the shapes when you need them. First shape would be the outer shape that encompasses the ear, basically a shape that resembles the letter C. Now you see me going on ahead and closing that big shape of the letter C here with these little forms, but these are little forms, and I'd rather I wish I didn't put those in here yet, but for the sake of clarity, I'd rather you consider that big outer shape of that letter C form as I was talking about it at first. Now I'm going to add to this the second shape, which goes in the inside of the ear. This shape looks to me kind of like just a bone. I mean, the ear is made of cartilage, which is really like this soft, bony substance. But this shape resembles more of a kind of little bone to me that fits right in the center or right inside the C shape. Now, as I said, there are a great variety of ear shapes that don't fit neatly into this pattern, but with a few tweaks to the simple design, you can make this work. Some tweaks may be a little bit more extreme than others. Here we have two different ear shapes, but generally they both fit into that pattern. This one being the most extreme right now. This one generally fitting that same pattern. It's not with like I said, with just a few tweaks. They're just about the same though. This a little bit more, but generally it's about the same thing. This can work as a starting off point for designing the ear. Now, again, just looking at these two different ears, you can see that there are different ways of drawing this ear, or different encounters that you would have as far as these shapes are concerned. But generally, they fit within that pattern, and you can take that to start off with and to just draw the ear. Now I'm going ahead and drawing this ear, as you see in this photo, in this reference photo, using these patterns. I'm going more detailed now, obviously, but it's going to work for me because I'm following this basic shape, and this basic shape is based on this reference that I have. So this will work for this reference. For anything else, I would probably have to, like I said before, just tweak it a bit just to fit that pattern. Although the ear is very small, there are a lot of parts that cross into each other with a lot of anatomical names, which I'm not going to get into, because to be perfectly honest, I really don't know them, because I've never been concerned with being an anatomist, just learning the anatomy just for the sake of learning anatomy. I'm more concerned with how things look and then what it is to call them, because my subject is in the main body of my work, basically portraits of individuals. I'm more concerned about making an accurate representation for the sake of whatever I'm working on. But I'm concerned about the individual's parts as they relate to the whole of the subject. So I want to be as accurate as possible in representing these. But again, the main thing is they are not the subject of what I'm doing. They are a part of a whole. And I want to represent them as they are. But they're not, like for me anyway, a separate study. But, I think for a lot of people that would be the case because a lot of people don't specialize necessarily in anatomy, but you do need to know anatomy in order to represent what you're doing as far as portraits or painting the human figure or whatever have you. If you want to do it accurately, you need to know at least some anatomy. So you need to make a study of it. I don't think that you need to make a science of it. That is for other people to do, but you need to learn from that science in order to apply it to your drawing or your painting and to your image, either way. I decided to do a gouache study of the ear as seen from the back, just to have some fun with it. In my underdrawing, I use a set of different shapes. First of all, for the main shape of the ear, you see I've drawn a kind of like a cup. So that cup represents the main shape of the ear as I'm seeing it from the back of a person's head, or as I'm seeing it obviously on this reference photo. For the shape that encompasses the ear, that C shape that we used before for the side of it, I'm putting that in kind of like as a lip over this cup. Right? You see I'm drawing I'm drawing the cup and so forth, and I'm putting in this a lip over the cup. Right? So I draw the cup in blue as you see here, and that lip over the cup I'm drawing in red. So those are the two shapes that I see. I'm breaking it down into very, very simple shapes. This has to be modified, of course. I have to make tweaks and changes, and I believe this works for a lot of situations. When you see, at least I have these two simple shapes to start off with, and if I have, like in the case that I've shown you before, a wide variety of ear shapes, then I can have a starting point. I can think of it in terms of these shapes. Now, of course, there might be some other shapes that you may encounter. I don't know, because I haven't seen every ear shape on the planet. So the thing is to find those simple shapes and break it down. I think these shapes, the shapes that I've used on this video, would be helpful in just about any situation. But you may encounter something different. You may encounter some different shape. In that case, you just try and analyze what you see. It helps to analyze the ear as simple shapes to start off. You can add more complex patterns as you develop the drawing or the painting. In this way, I'm following that method of going from the big to the little, or from the simple to the particular. So I'm just thinking of simple. I'm thinking simple, and then I'm going from there, and I'm going to make it more complex by just seeing what it is that I see in nature, and analyzing it, as I said, and making it simple. And then from there, I'm just allowing the complexity. I'm allowing the big shapes to lead me to the smaller and smaller shapes. But I start off big first. Like even as I'm doing, things like the hair, I'm thinking of like the big shape of the hair, and then I might put like a medium value, right? And then I break it down to the darker values, and I break it down into light values. So that's 3 steps. The same thing with anything that you draw or paint. I look at the shape of the ear. I start with the big things that I see. Then I start into the smaller areas that I see. And then I start into even smaller areas that I see. So I'm going from the big to, I take that big shape and I draw the big shape. Then I take that big shape and look inside that big shape and see what's the next big shape. And then I look at what's the next big shape. And then I kind of have to remember to keep it as simple as possible, because things read simple, especially we've gotten used to this thing of seeing images online and seeing reproductions of images online, but that's a lot different thing than seeing the actual painting, because this is a step that other artists didn't have, right? Nothing that Michelangelo had, nothing that Degas had, nothing that Sargent had. At best, they had a reproduction of their paintings done in a magazine, which really hadn't developed photography yet. Not really to the extent that we have it today. So it really wasn't a great reproduction. If you wanted to see and feel the effect of the painting, you would have to go see the painting. The thing is that even though we have the internet today, even though we can see those images today, it's still the same thing. There is nothing like seeing the actual work. There's nothing like seeing the painting or the actual drawing. You don't have the same feeling from looking at an image on the computer, no matter how high the resolution is. Because that resolution doesn't give you a feeling of size. It really doesn't give you a feeling of texture. It represents some of the texture, but you're not really seeing the texture. You're not really seeing it lift off the paper, or you're not seeing the effects it has on that surface. You're seeing a representation of it on the screen. It's a whole different thing. And the only way that you can fully understand that is by having a favorite painting that may be somewhere near where you live or where you're vacationing or whatever, and going to see that painting and seeing how different it is when you see it live. It's funny, but it can have different effects, right? There's an impact that a painting has it on you, especially when it's big sized, right? And the one thing is, like, I've gone to see a Sargent painting. When I see it in reproductions, right, there's a painting of this man, a hermit, and he's in the woods, and the only thing around him are these 2 deers, and he's in the woods. And when you see it on in a book or in reproduction, it looks one way, and it's all working together. It's a lovely Sargent painting. When you see it in the museum, I went to the American Wing in New York City, and I saw this painting. And what happened was that when I'm up close for it, on that painting, it's like all these brushstrokes, they combine, and it's an amazing kind of slashes here and there, or it's amazing to see that he worked all this out, but it's kind of hard to appreciate. Then I took a few steps back, and it started to come together. I took a few more steps back, and it all worked. It's kind of like it just all fit. Like I was out of focus when I was up front. When I moved back for it, all of a sudden it all that focus comes in, and you can see and appreciate the painting, and it looks incredible. And that's the thing that you won't get from a reproduction. You might get some semblance of that, but you won't get that experience till you go and see the actual painting. Now that was an incredible experience. I remembered a more deflating experience when I went to see the Mona Lisa. I was at Paris, and my brother and I, we went to the Louvre, and there was this big crowd just going into this place to see the Mona Lisa. It was hard to get a look at it, and I really couldn't get a close-up look at it. I probably would appreciate it more if I would have been closer to it, because the problem with the Mona Lisa is that you see it in reproduction in a book, but that painting is actually very, very tiny. It was almost like I was disappointed. I was like, wow, that's the painting, that small thing that's like probably the most famous painting in the world. But I couldn't get to appreciate it because I couldn't get to be up front close to it. And something that size, you had to be close to it to really appreciate what the artist did with it, because you can only see so much watching something so small from so far. Whereas with Sargent's painting, you got to step back because it's so big that you can't see everything like when you're right up on it. But when you step back from it, you're like, oh wow, it's a whole different experience. So we're kind of used to that. But when we think about breaking things down in terms of and simplifying things, it's what the artist did, no matter whether they work big or they work small. But the whole thing is to see the image in a certain way so that you can analyze it and break it down and then translate it on your surface so that the viewer can have an experience with it. And it's different when you actually see the thing, the real thing, right? So anyway, that I actually went into extra talk about images, but this in effect is a video about how to construct the ear, how to draw and how to paint the ear. And that's pretty much the end of this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you find this video useful. And as always, I will be back with another video on Tuesdays. So please, if you like the video, please hit like. And if you haven't done so already, please remember to subscribe.